Welcome back. Final moments of the program here with Sean Starr. I'm Connor Mckenna, and it's time to welcome Campbell and Gallo. They are in studio with us here right now for a little bit of a crossover. Hello, fellas.
Good morning.
Hello.
So let me start with this question for you guys. At this point now, if the Buffalo Sabres win this series, it would be what? Finish the sentence.
Catastrophic.
In what respect?
In what respect? I don't know if there could be something more disappointing than having a 3-2 series lead with home ice in Game 6 when you've completely outplayed the team you're up against in what is it now, four of the 5 games, maybe even 4.5 of the 5 games, and to go on to lose that series, I think that would be a catastrophic result, and all we'd be talking about for the entire summer was the Canadiens' inability to close out a series.
I want to go with like failure, but then I think it might just be like crazy turnaround because watching the Sabres in the third period, they looked done. They looked disheartened.
Oh, they outshot them 20-3.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't even aware of that.
No, but that was like they only really got going after they pulled the goalie. When it was 6-3 and there's 12 minutes left.
Yeah.
The energy in the building was gone. The energy on the bench was gone. The players went back to the blue line with their shoulders down with the puck. They're like, I was like, they are done.
Yeah.
And I compare that to the championship caliber team like the Colorado Avalanche. They were down 3-0 in that game against Minnesota. In the third period, it was 3-1. And I know a 2-goal versus a 3-goal. But the way that the Canadiens took the game away from the Sabres after the Sabres had control.
Fair.
That killed their youthfulness came out with how they reacted again. And they were just disheartened. They gave no energy, no life. And maybe in 48 hours it could change. And that would be, surprising to me with everything here. I'm Saturday. I want to say it's over. I know how hockey works, and you just move on to the next game.
Campbell, they need a lot of luck to win
The
series.
Sabres.
Buffalo does.
Yeah, but also I'll go maybe a little different. I'd go slightly surprising, not catastrophic.
Okay, it would be shocking.
Well,
No,
I'll just put up the argument for the other
today.
side. I'll put up the argument for the other side that we look back at how the Canadiens won games 2 and 3. The 11-3 margin of victory. Wow, oh my God, just cracking these guys left, right, and center. And it was not even a Buffalo Sabres goaltender problem. It's a structural problem. And then what happened? They come, bam, they punch the Canadiens in the mouth. There was the Sabres getting involvement from defensemen, better puck management. Still the lack of discipline was a thing, right?
Extraordinarily lucky goal.
And they, no doubt, but they were the better team in terms of pressure. And I don't believe in momentum. I don't believe in momentum existing between Game 5 and Game 6. I think momentum will reestablish itself. But we've seen the Canadiens lose big games at the Bell Center in these playoffs. In our last crossover, I think I asked the three of you about Bell Center hype and all this stuff, and is it a tad overrated? So
2 and 3 in the playoffs.
Could they come here and win Game 6 Saturday night? Absolutely they can.
Yeah.
Absolutely they can.
Yes.
And then flip a coin in the air for Game 7.
I wouldn't call it a coin flip because the Canadiens have been the better team. I mean, if one side is I don't know if the coin flip analogy is a perfect one, but shocking is the word that I would use.
A weighted coin. A
Kind
loaded
of.
die.
Like it feels right now, it just feels incredibly unlikely to me that the Canadiens don't win this series, even if they don't win tomorrow night. Like, I'm absolutely picking them to win Game 7 if they lose on home ice tomorrow night, which is another story for another day, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But that's to your point about the way the Sabres looked and not carrying that over. The Canadiens' ability in that game yesterday to put up what they did in that first period, still score goals along the way because Luukkonen was on par. But Dobesh has bounced back. The Canadiens bounced back. Even the start of the second period wasn't going well for the Canadiens. It wasn't until Deneau won that draw and Hudson had a little bit of magic to make that play. Oof. But the Canadiens' ability to turn things around mid-game versus the Sabres' ability not to turn things around mid-game was the difference, and that's why I think the series is over, because the Canadiens can manage their emotions and their abilities. Oh, okay, guys, reset, recalibrate. We don't have to wait till the next game. We can do it tonight.
Buffalo's also a one-line team here, right?
Which line?
Doan, Norris, and Benson when they're together, and rough mixed and matched because Krebs and Tuck have actually done nothing and have been minus players.
Well, Thompson as well, right?
But at least he's got something.
Yeah,
you know, but
not that plus minus is the greatest stat and the be all end all, but still
2 goals for
when
Thompson,
you're
2 lucky
-9
bounces.
yeah,
in
when
a
you're a
series.
collective minus 17 with 2 guys,
yeah,
like,
combined Tuck and Thompson are minus 17 in the series.
yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And
but we don't like plus minus, right, Gallo?
No, but
sometimes,
Yeah.
when you're -9 in a series, I think you can bring it up.
I think so.
When it matters, I like to bring it up
pointless?
with Gallo because he
Yeah,
hates
yeah.
that stat.
It's
but
it's
But the biggest number is
is
0. 0 points for 2/3 of their so-called number 1 unit.
Who took a tick for the Habs on that first goal against that? Somebody got off the ice. There was one guy. Everybody else was hemmed in for a minute, and somebody got a
Yeah,
tick.
they're
And
trying
I'm
to
not sure
get-
who it was, but it's just when that happens. You know what I
was in
mean?
the car.
I'm curious, you guys. I was thinking about Trevor Letowski, who got a little bit more attention in the last 12 hours than he normally does, because he was the intermediary between Martin St. Louis and Marco Marciano.
because he has a headset.
But he is Martin St. Louis' right-hand man. I mean, if this was the National Football League, I think that this is the type of guy who might be starting to get hype and interest as a head coach. What do you think, Gallo? I mean, the Leafs, how would you feel if you found out they were sniffing around Trevor Letowski, let's say?
I don't know if the Leafs would make the most sense. I think the Leafs need more of a team, the coach that's going to help their team clean up their defense.
Yeah.
The metrics suggest the Leafs were the absolute worst defensive team in the entire league by far.
Okay.
But in general, I love your football analogy because I was thinking about that earlier today, just in general with Martin St. Louis and Letowski and being the go-between with Marciano. I thought that was really cool to learn about that a little bit, because when we think about the National Football League, every coach in football has their area of expertise, right? Some guys are great play callers, other guys are great offensive minds, motivators, defensive gurus, all this type of thing. And the great coaches, they are able to delegate responsibility to their staff and then trust their staff with the responsibilities that they've been given. And I think we really saw that outlined yesterday with Martin St. Louis. I think one of the things that makes him a great coach, look, he's the head coach. He gets a lot of credit. Everybody's talking today about a great decision from Martin St. Louis to leave Dobesh in the net. And I'm not taking anything away from him, but he was leaning on the expert that he has on his staff when it comes to goaltending and reading that situation. He said it himself. He's like, I don't know much about goaltending, but when I'm told by the goaltending coach to leave the goalie in, then that's what I do. So I think that goes a long way as far as taking the football approach. For Letowski, I think not the Maple Leafs, but maybe if you're a team with a bunch of young players and you want somebody who's good at working with the forwards, because we know Robida does most of the work with the defense, and somebody who I think has the qualities. I don't know Letowski too well, but just watching the interactions on the bench, somebody who has the qualities to be the guy as a head coach, I think certainly teams should take a look at that.
I think the idea is bringing a guy that would do the same pathway that Martin St. Louis. You can't get Martin St. Louis.
Yeah.
So I would get, like, I heard you this morning mention that. I was like, that makes so much sense. And if you look at it, if we bring it back to Martin St. Louis, what is it, the Jack Adams, right? It was Muse, Ruff, Cooper. He beats Cooper. He's beating Ruff. Muse, whatever. The Penguins went on a run. Martin St. Louis is proving that he probably should be the coach of the year. And if he's not the best coach, you're going to go and try and grab the guy that probably knows Martin St. Louis' brain better than anybody else.
How much of MSL is rubbed off on
100%,
Letowski?
100%.
And can you capitalize
And they're
on
tight. I mean, that whole group, that whole collective, right? I mean, just again, there's so much evidence, and I think it was brought to the forefront yesterday with that conversation that happened on the bench in real time, and the whole trust factor, how much they believe in each other, a more modernized approach, that relatability factor that I think plays such a huge role in building this, this infamous culture we talk about on teams all the time, And I'll tell you another. I don't want to deviate from the Q&A, but if there's one name that I'd be a little worried about inside the infrastructure of the Canadiens that maybe could leave is John Sedgwick.
Mm-hmm.
You ask about Letowski, different position, management. You look around. Maybe a team like Nashville, for example. He's the one guy that stayed over that had an executive position from the Bergevin area that Gorton and Hughes thought highly enough, saying, can't lose this guy. So there's a name. There's a name that I wonder if teams are going to start calling and asking for permission.
If they're going to lose someone.
No, but I know what you're saying, but at the same time, if to Sean's point, if you're looking at salary cap and that's Sedgwick's job, is there a team in hockey that has managed the cap better than the Montreal Canadiens under this regime.
Dude, Lane Hudson's a contract.
All of them, though. Slavkovsky's contract,
Yeah,
Caulfield,
yeah.
Suzuki's
Yeah.
and
And Demidov will be next.
But
Yeah,
did
that'll be interesting to see what they do with
Did
Demidov.
Sedgwick, was he the one who got them to accept those contracts? I don't know. I mean, you might know better than I do. Would he have been a big part of that?
Yeah, but he's kind of the guy that says you can do this much or this much. This is your parameters when you go and negotiate,
Right.
and then you go and get.
But a
get
player
your
could say,
negotiate.
"Oh yeah,
Yeah,
well,
I mean,
here's my
that's it.
parameters."
Those guys-
you know, like
Well, think about it.
Those guys still had to buy in.
Yeah.
you know?
That's the key.
And
yes, agreed.
it's remarkable that that Bergevin gave Suzuki the contract that set the kind of the standard.
Yes.
It's wild that that's carried over the years.
Well, think about the Canadiens down the stretch here. They've had an $8 million player that hasn't hampered their cap at all.
Not playing.
Yeah.
Dobesh and Fowler. Considering the fact that that's as close as the Canadiens have come, I think we can say, to getting Jacob Fowler into a game in the playoffs was in the first period yesterday. Obviously, it doesn't happen. That ends up being the story. But let's do some way too soon speculation about how this plays out. I think of two different situations. I've mentioned this many times before, but the Jonathan Quick, Jonathan Bernier situation in L.A. some 15 or so years ago, and or actually right around the same time, I guess, Yaroslav Halak and Carey Price here in Montreal. This isn't the same. It's not even, I don't know if it's apples and oranges, but it's definitely not apples to apples. But if you had to predict how this is going to play out, I'll go to you first, Gallo. How does this story play out in the years to come?
I think right now in hockey, the position is so unpredictable, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jakub Dobeš has serious regression in his game next year. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me if Fowler has hiccups along the way as he tries to establish himself as a goalie in the National Hockey League.
But is there enough racetrack for both of them to find their way?
Well, that's the thing. I think because of the volatility at that position, like if I look around the league, I don't know from game to game, from month to month, from year to year, playoff series to playoff series, who's going to be good and who isn't. Look at Colorado. I mean, they flip-flopped in the series. They flip-flopped in the game that they ended up clinching against Minnesota. Who would have had Frederik Andersen as the starting goaltender on a team that's likely to appear in the Stanley Cup final? Play 25 games.
At his age.
They leaned on Brandon Bussey all year.
Well, we know what happens to Freddie Anderson in the conference finals. Yeah, let's wait a week.
Yeah, we can wait a week for sure. But the point being, go through all the teams in hockey, with the exception of the Rangers and the Lightning and the Jets, teams that have that bona fide number one.
Mm-hmm.
I never know. So for me, as far as that position's concerned, what I tell you is I just roll with both of them for as long as I can. Dobeš is under a pretty good contract, and Fowler doesn't need a new contract anytime soon. Just wait it out. Roll with two guys.
What if a franchise that's in love with Fowler has that second line center that the Canadiens need to solidify their top six, and they really want Fowler as part of that package?
Yeah. I mean,
Dobeš.
I'd have in the hypothetical, I'd like to know the player that we're talking about, the second line player. But in general, I tell you, I try to find another way to get that player, a different avenue. I'd stick with two guys just because I find it way too unpredictable to try to just hitch my wagon to one of them.
It's tough in this era of the league about putting all your chips in the middle of the pot and saying it's Dobeš or it's Fowler. But when we think about it, and I'll bring David Reinbacher's name into the conversation, right? Gets hurt, doesn't finish out the season for Laval in their playoff loss to the Marlies.
Why do you have to bring up David Reinbacher?
Well, you didn't give me.
There
There was no warning. There was no warning.
This is a happy time right now.
If you're trying to break down, trying to get that coveted, which I think is their number one priority, considering what they've done without one. I mean, Jake Evans, God bless him, is doing unbelievable stuff. Benefiting from Demidov's rub and I guess Alex Newhook by an extent, but. If you're moving down the list and trying to fill that hole, David Reinbacher's dropped down the list. I think of maybe general managers looking at the Canadiens cupboard saying, give me this, give me this, give me this, give me that. Hage is there, Zarovsky is there. And without question, sure. Maybe they want to see him at the pro level to see what he could do before we get there. But seeing someone like Jacob Fowler or Jakub Dobeš, I could totally see a world, and I'd love to talk about who that center is, who it is. But I'll throw a name out. What if it's Nico Hischier or the New Jersey Devils? What if it is, right?
Sold.
Sold. Hand up, sold.
Suzuki A, Suzuki B, my goodness.
Yeah,
sold, right?
No, but that's,
sold.
So you gave me a
life
name.
After Jake Allen, after Jake Allen, moving forward.
Yeah. So I like
You gotta risk it. You gotta
if you
risk
give
it.
me a name, I like your question because that will be a target for some teams. Maybe Edmonton's already circled and started targeting young goaltender of the future. But Mitch brought up a great point about the contracts. One, today's NHL, you need 2 goalies. You're going to play 2 goalies.
Agreed.
Neither of these goalies have proven that they could play 60 to 65. Everybody thought Montembeault could do it. Can't do it. He played 60 once. Who knows if he'll play 60 again? So the contract that is within your realm of keeping control. One, you're going to have guys playing 40 games. That means they're not going to get $7 million contracts. They're not at the age where Allmark and Swayman both got those big contracts. They got their nominees, and then you had to decide, I can't have $13 million on 2 goalies combined, or even more than that, so they have to move forward. You have economic control on both of them. You're going to be able to keep their numbers a little bit down because they're only going to play 40 games each. You ride this wave of these 2 goalies for maybe half a decade, 5-6 years, unless
you've got 3 college guys.
Give me
you got 3 college guys that play the position that you have.
For a trade, I find the names that you bring up all very fascinating because Hage, I don't know, it feels the Canadiens weren't exactly thrilled.
I agree with that.
With his decision to go back. They said the right things publicly. I don't think they're too happy about that. Zorowski, to me, it sounds like he's being a little overhyped. And then the other guy you brought up, Pickford, if you look at the Canadiens' build on the blue line, where does he fit? If he's scoring at the clip that he's scoring at, maybe he will garner some interest and you could trade him because the blue line is kind of jammed. There's not a lot of room for guys coming in 2-3 years.
Well, the future remains in question about, Arbor Jackey's an RFA. Jaden Struvel's been involved in rumors over the last couple of seasons. I mean, it's there's a lot of unanswered questions that maybe get solved this summer.
Well, as far as the blue line goes, big one is where does Reinbacher fit in, if at all, in the future? And that'll be fun to see. But probably more of a late July, August question than a mid-May, 1 game away from the conference finals type question. The Sabres and the various shenanigans late in the game there.
Yeah.
What do we think? What have we learned about Lindy Ruff and the Buffalo Sabres over the course of the last couple of weeks and the way they do business? I've been largely quite unimpressed with the product that has been presented to me. It was a great story. And now here we are in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I feel like they are fortunate that this series is not over now, in a way. And I think maybe the least impressive aspect of the Sabres to me is, that Thompson penalty yesterday is just so perfectly symptomatic of everything that seems to be wrong with this team. He's 28 years old. I don't care how little playoff experience he has. Here we are. They're nearing the 95 game mark on the season. What do you make of the fact that the Buffalo Sabres Campbell, they can't stop shooting themselves in the foot?
It's almost like they were not concentrated on the Montreal Canadiens, and heading into Game 5, they were concentrated on the referees. Lindy Ruff had his little spiel about diving. Lindy Ruff was barking and screaming, and going back to Game 4 of the referee. Then you had Darlene barking, their captain. The players take their cue from their head coach, and it was a trickle-down effect. And heading into Game 5 last night, the Sabres were ready to battle the Stripes. They weren't ready to battle the Canadiens.
Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of immaturity in Buffalo's game. Just because you're 28 years old and have been around the block in the NHL doesn't mean you're a mature player. I think it's pretty funny that the Buffalo Sabres take 7 penalties and allow 1 power play goal, and then they take 2 penalties and allow 2 power play goals in that game last night. I find that to be comical. And all the dialogue with Lindy Ruff and the Canadiens going down easy, and then it's his team snapping their head back and playing clown in the game last night.
That was awesome.
Right? To me, that is example A of being an immature hockey team. The one that the Josh Doan head snap was the worst of the worst to me. If I'm a referee,
and falls down,
and then you see, right? Tage Thompson tries to snap his head back, and the stick actually connected with Thompson in the final minutes more so than it did Josh Doan. But if you're a referee and you see that, and these guys know, they go and they watch video in between periods during the intermission. The referees know what's going on. You might not like them. You might not think the NHL has great officiating. They're not stupid. And then if you're going to cry wolf, well, then you're gonna have to pay the consequences later in a game. I just think, Connor, to answer the question, I think Lindy Ruff, for a coach that's been around as long as he has, he's been way too emotional And then you look at Martin St. Louis, the complete opposite approach. He was asked about the referees. What did he say? He said, if I'm worried about the referees to win me a series, then I'm worried about the wrong things. That's the right approach. Lindy Ruff's immature for a coach that is an old man who's been coaching for 1,800 games, whatever it is.
Did you call him the ultimate loser?
Well, nobody's lost more in National Hockey League history than him without winning a championship.
Who do you dislike more, John Cooper or Lindy Ruff here?
Oh, John Cooper.
Okay.
Well, I think John Cooper is...
Because I like when you go in on the coaches.
Yeah,
you know?
well, I think John Cooper's an amazing coach. I just think he's very smug in his demeanor. I don't think Lindy Ruff is a great coach.
What's the furthest
he's lost a lot?
What's the furthest he's been?
99 Cup final with Buffalo.
He was the coach then?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I wasn't
99.
sure about that. I can't. So this is his third time, or was he just the coach for that long?
He was coach of Buffalo for like 18 years.
Yeah, he was there for like 2 decades.
Yeah.
A lot of losing.
It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke.
Oh, man. All right. Anything else anybody wants to get off their chest before we say goodbye?
That felt good.
What?
Well, to get all that off my chest with the head snapping yesterday. Man, that made me upset.
We got another 4 hours to go, Gallo.
Yeah.
Well, not quite.
No, thank you for that. I like this crossover. This is fun.
3 hours and 45 minutes or so, Campbell.
Yeah, you guys are heading into your weekend here. Sorry.
Yeah. It's,
Long weekend.
it's enough now.
Yeah,
First star.
Oh, first time.
everybody else will be here on Monday, not Sean.
Getting ready for Game 7?
No, get her in for game 1 on
I
Tuesday.
say that I really, really hope not. I don't know that, like you. I mean, it wouldn't shock me, but I think it would be the right end to this story of this round is the Canadiens, unlike against the Tampa team that they couldn't close out in Game 6 in an absolute epic game, but that this time against this less mature, less experienced
Correct.
Buffalo team,
Yes.
that the next step here is to close these guys out.
I think we're
going to
see a Vegas kind of end to their series yesterday. That type of I thought the dagger was driven home yesterday.
a minute and 2 seconds into the game.
I think it's going to be party time at the Bell Center on Saturday night, no sweat kind of game.
I'm down for a party.
I think Buffalo's going to have to be lucky. If we're setting up a
That's
game,
been their trend all
if
series.
we're setting up a Game 7, it's because Buffalo had a lot of fortunate bounces in Game 6.
You're starting Dobish, huh?
What about on the other side? Alex Lyon?
They're screwed with that decision.
Oh,
now.
no kidding.
I Mark Denis joked last night on the post game because I brought this up. He said Colton Ellis ?
He said maybe 3 goalies, eh? Yeah.
Well, I always say this, Gallo, I say this. If you're in the middle of a playoff series and you're in games 4, 5, or 6, and you're heading into the game and you don't know which goalie you're going to use,
Oh, my God.
you're probably losing the series.
unless you're Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But they knew which goalie they were going to. Like, heading into the game, you're like, Luukkonen, Lyon. Like, they were like, oh, okay, it's Wedgwood's turn. It's
one of the
Black.
Woods.
Yeah.
As long as his name ends with Wood, we'll probably win.
Remember when they had Miles Wood?
Yes. Yeah. Where's he now?
I saw him.
In New Jersey?
No, he's out west
No,
somewhere.
He was. I think
Yeah.
Jersey first. No,
He's out west somewhere.
Anyway, good name. Thanks, guys. What's coming up during Campbell versus Gallo this morning, fellas?
Lots of hockey, of course. Dennis Bernstein, Chris Meany. And we're going to get a little update from the Alouettes training camp. Quarterback Davis Alexander in the final hour of the show.
How's the hammy?
And we'll ask him.
Good.
6 months to rest.
Well, you can't have enough rest. Rest is a weapon, fellas. Thanks very much.